everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. This is episode 7. What a week we have had in wrestling. Absolutely unbelievable. It is such a good time to be a wrestling fan right now, and 2019 has been insane for us. This week, I want to briefly talk about Double or Nothing. I don't want to cover the whole thing because there was too much good stuff to get through. So I'm going to briefly talk about the Cody match, and then the main event, and obviously the surprise at the end of said main event, which was insanely surprising and awesome, and oh my god. No, outside of that, I'm going to cover the usual Raw, SmackDown. I wish I was covering Raw and SmackDown in a positive way this week, but sadly I'm not. We all expected Vince to come back with something awesome, something great, something that is going to just be the ultimate response to AEW's debut on the Saturday night, and we didn't get it. So, does he care? Probably not. He probably doesn't care. He's just going to carry on doing what he's doing. We're not going to see any upturn in form or anything like that. Although we do have NXT TakeOver this weekend, so there is that. So we can at least look forward to something in WWE. We'll do that. Do the Quickfire news, recommendations, and that will be it for the week. So, yeah, let's just get into it. Let's just forget the intro and there's some news over there in the horizon. I'm going to hit it right now. Let's get over to that Quickfire news.
Well, I'm afraid I've got some news.
Now, this week is a massive slow news week, which is going to make the Quickfire news even more quickfire. So we're going to just get into it. Let's go. WWE have released some preview stuff for next week. So we're going to see Undertaker on Raw, and we're going to see Goldberg on SmackDown Live. It doesn't look like they're going to meet, which is odd, seeing as they have a match to build together, but that's what's happening next week. And also on Raw, Paul Heyman has announced that Brock Lesnar will cash in his Money in the Bank contract at some point during the show. Whether that turns out to be the case, or we're just getting another swerve, we'll find out on Monday night. It looks like the main event for AEW's All Out show in Chicago is now set, and we're going to have Chris Jericho versus Hangman Page for the AEW Championship. This was revealed by Jericho himself on his recent appearance on Busted Open. Nothing official has been released from AEW yet at the time of recording, but that is the rumoured plan and probably the one that we are going to see. The rumour mill in WWE is starting to do the rounds regarding Sasha Banks and her return to the company. It looks like there could be an open door for her to come back as a heel character, which is something we would all prefer her to be anyway. The rumour is that she could be returning in the next couple of months, but as is always the case with these things, take it with a pinch of salt. But at the moment, they're on good terms, and we can expect a return in summer 2019. And there's your news. I am really digging this Quickfire news. It means it just gets it out of the way. You don't have me expanding on stuff that you probably already know. It's not really opinion based. It's just the news and the odd rumor every now and then. So 5 minutes and 15 seconds. We've got no news left to do. We've got no intros to do, which means we should head over to Stephanie McMahon, who we all love to hear every single week, and the Raw highlights. Let's go.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
Now, if I started recording this earlier on in the week, you would be getting a rant right now, but I've calmed down since Monday, and to a lesser extent, Tuesday. Oh dear. Raw... No, SmackDown was decent, but we're talking about Raw now, and Raw, as a show itself, it was its usual inconsistent self. It wasn't fantastic. It was far from it, in fact. It's the fact that we were all expecting a response to Double or Nothing on Saturday night, which was incredible. So good. I'm really glad that I ended up watching it, because I was, 50-50 about it, and I was not disappointed, and many other wrestling fans who tuned in were not disappointed either. I don't really know anybody who was all that negative about it. I think people who were negative about it were just people just being negative for the sake of it, to be honest. But I did think, when I was watching it, in the back of my mind, I was like, come Raw, Vince has to respond to this. He has to just deliver. Even if it's not a great episode, it just has to be good. And it was just the same stuff that we've been getting every other week. The only thing that was, crazy, outside of Brock, which we'll get into, was the fact that Sami Zayn said AEW live on air. And whether that was, scripted or not, one of the most interesting things about the show was AEW, or the AEW being mentioned, which is not how I expected the response to be. So Monday, I was fuming, to be honest. I was expecting something great, and it didn't happen. But, as the week's gone on, I've tried to be more pro WWE and more positive about WWE. I am a very loyal WWE guy, which is why I cover WWE so much on this podcast. They make it hard. They really do make it hard sometimes. But, I did manage to find some highlights from Raw. So, I have the GIF just lodged in my brain, and not even that, all the memes that go with it. Brock is by far my MVP of the week. Him coming down with a boombox Money in the Bank and, a hoodie and some new entrance music, doing his little, dad dancing. Oh, it was brilliant. I'll admit, the first time I saw it, I was like, what have they done with Brock Lesnar? What have they done? But then I watched it again, and then I watched YouTube highlights, and I was like, I actually quite like this. Like, it's terrible, but I like it. He's showing some personality. This is a different side of Brock than, many people have seen. If you're, I mean, with me, I've been watching wrestling for quite some time, so I can go back to when, he came to the ring wearing a sombrero when he was feuding with Eddie, and doing this kind of, messing around stuff. So that personality is in there, and I remember him having it. Just since he's been back, we've rarely seen it, if at all. So it was really nice to see it come back this week, and he was on form, rare form in this, particular, characterization. And yeah, it was very refreshing. Even Paul Heyman doing some air guitar really popped me. So yeah, definitely my MVP. And that whole opening, segment with Lesnar, Kofi, and Seth, I actually enjoyed it. I'm not a fan of, long drawn out openings on Raw or SmackDown, where it's just promo. In fact, we didn't have wrestling for the first 50 minutes with Raw this week. And when we did get it, it was Shane. So you can see why people, were so pissed off about Raw this week, and why, I know just having said that reminded me why I was so annoyed at Raw. But no, Brock was a highlight, and he didn't stop with the opening segment. He came out later, and the moment of the night, to be completely honest, when Paul Heyman got on the mic and he was going through the contract, and Brock, I have a year. I didn't know that. The fact that it was off mic as well, it was just really funny. And then he hits Paul Heyman in the face with the paper, probably gives him a paper cut. like Brock is capable of, comedic stuff. He does have comedic timing. Like, he does. Like, you look back at his... I mean, I mentioned the Eddie feud and some, the Dancing to the Ring and, Sombrero, and he had the Mexican band and all that kind of stuff. But even the stuff with Kurt Angle, that was, gold as well, when they were challenging each other to, push, like, the most push-ups, and when they were in catering together, and he smacks Kurt's back when he's full of milk, and he spews it all over, a girl he's trying to chat up, and, Brock's got that comedic time in him, and he's got that personality in him, and this week it was just really nice to see him, bring that out of himself, and Paul Heyman was his usual fantastic self. Like, you can never have anything negative to say about Paul Heyman, to be honest. And this is where things get a little bit more difficult to find some positive highlights for Raw. I have two more, and one was a dead cert as an inclusion, and that was the match between Cesaro and Ricochet for the second week in a row, match of the night, easily. These two... I said it on Twitter, and I had a couple of engagements with a few people talking about it. I'd love to see these guys, do a series, just like Cesaro and Sheamus did a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was. I don't think they would ever be capable of putting on a bad match. There's a lot of creativity with what they do. I mean, that ending when Ricochet flipped over and swung himself up onto Cesaro's shoulders, and then the athleticism in that is unbelievable. Obviously, I know Cesaro, obviously helps him, up, but you won't see many other people do that. And Ricochet is just unbelievable. I could watch a Ricochet match, any Ricochet match, just over and over and over again, and I don't think I'd ever be bored. And Cesaro, for that matter, both of them, together at the moment, I think, outside of NXT anyway, are, they have the most in-ring chemistry out of everybody at the moment. I would say that. I think they could go and just keep pushing these two together, because you're guaranteed a great match every single night on Raw, and that's what they need to get a bit of focus back on, is the in-ring stuff. I mean, the matches have been good, but have they been on this level? Maybe not. So they've got some gold in Cesaro and Ricochet, that's for sure. And it's not picking at straws, this next one, because it's been fantastic since it debuted. But I'm going with Bray Wyatt and the Firefly Funhouse. So we had the reveal 2 weeks ago, and we found out his little secret, the whole mask thing, and, the dark side of himself. This week we had little, tiny snippets of the dark stuff, but it was more or less what we had seen initially with the Firefly Funhouse, which is good. I like that it's going back and forth, but it still has me worried about what we're going to get when he gets in the ring. Like, is he going to come to the ring in his Firefly Funhouse attire, so like the sweater and the pants, or is he going to come to the ring as this demonic side of himself? I mean, maybe he'll do what Balor does, and he'll come to the ring as his nice happy self, but on special occasions he'll bring out the darkness inside. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But that was definitely a highlight. It's always a highlight every single week. I just didn't want to keep saying it was a highlight. But I've had to clutch at straws this week. So, yeah, it's made it into the highlights, and probably will be next week as well. And to be honest, I mean, Seth and Sami Zayn had a really good main event as well. I'd love to talk about it in some kind of depth, but I didn't really watch it that much. I know it was good. And I watched a couple of spots, but I wasn't into it because I had other stuff going on. And to be honest, I was probably still feeling the effects of hearing AEW on WWE TV as well. So the electric chair segment, though, by the way, terrible. And they're bringing it back next week, as far as I'm aware. Oh dear, that's the kind of stuff, and again, this feeds in to why so many people are annoyed. That's the kind of stuff that, people watching WWE, especially after Double or Nothing, kind of go, why? Why am I watching this stuff? It's awful. But that was Raw. I don't know if you guys enjoyed it. I thought it was, I didn't think it was great. I struggled for highlights this week. But it seems to be the general feel every single week that I struggle to find good things to say about Raw. But that's it. Enough of Raw. I want to put that Raw behind me. Let's go to SmackDown Live. Let's hear Shane's beautiful intro, and we'll talk through the highlights that I've managed to scramble together for that show. So here we go.
Welcome everyone to Smackdown Live.
SmackDown, just like Raw this week. SmackDown was better than Raw. Let's not beat around the bush. It was better than Raw, but that's not a hard thing to achieve at this point. But I thought SmackDown was good this week. The problem is I don't really remember much of it. So my highlights are shallow at the best. So Owens and Kofi, I thought their whole interaction on the show this week was really good. I actually thought we were going to get a match straight away as the show kicked off, but we ended up getting a promo. But Kofi showed, some intensity in his character this week, which was, quite nice to see. And I can see the layers starting to appear with him now as WWE champion, and it's great. It's good to see that he's evolving. Even 11 years, 12 years into his WWE tenure, he's still evolving, and the fact that he's bringing it as the WWE champion, hats off to the guy. Very, very, very impressive. Their match, I actually thought was better than the Money in the Bank match that they had, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. Some really hard-hitting spots. Owens hit that frog splash on the outside. That looked... whenever Owens does that frog splash to the outside, it always looks great. And he hit a swanton as well in the ring. People always talk about Owens and, his size, but, you don't realize just how agile he is and the athleticism that he has. I haven't seen him do it for a very long time, but, he does have the capability of, flipping over the ropes to the outside on somebody and doing these sentons and moonsaults and all that kind of stuff. He's more than capable of doing it. They just seem to have tamed it, which is a shame. But if he becomes a babyface again, maybe we'll see, that start to creep into his moveset again. But no, I think Owens and Kofi really did really well this week. Now this is weird because Shane, I don't enjoy on Raw for some reason. I don't know what it is. He's the same character, but I think on SmackDown he's a bit more diluted. We don't see as much of him. I don't know, it's really hard to place because he does play the authority role on both shows, but on SmackDown I can tolerate him, and I actually really enjoy Shane McMahon on SmackDown. The heel appreciation thing was really fun, really well done, good for some heat. I don't like the fact that McIntyre's paired himself with Shane. McIntyre's a solo guy. We should be a solo guy, and he just keeps getting thrown together with, Dolph, or with Braun and Dolph, or with Shane now, or Corbin and Lashley. It's just let him go out on his own. It's not hard to figure out, where things are going wrong with WWE. That's one of them. Let Drew go. Let him do his own thing. And he's just going to get tired of it, surely. I would. But I thought I actually really enjoyed that segment. And as annoying as it is to see Shane wrestle so much at the moment, I am enjoying his character. So there is that. So that was a highlight for me this week. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but it was definitely a highlight for me. And I actually also enjoyed Bayley and Lacey's match together. Lacey looked a lot better than she did again, just like Owens and Kofi at Money in the Bank, she looked a lot better than she did at Money in the Bank as well. I thought it was good. It was a good match for what it was. I think they split the alliance of Charlotte and Lacey way too soon. I could have done a lot more with that, but they've pulled the plug more or less straight away. I mean, they've been aligned for like the past 2-3 weeks. It's probably essentially since that contract signing before Money in the Bank with Becky, and it just seemingly has ended now, which I don't really understand. I think there was some potential with them to being together for an X amount of time, and then one of them turning on the other. I think that would, especially for Lacey, a situation like that could have potentially made her, but we don't seem to be getting that now. And again, that is, you question creative sometimes. You just hope that something that just seems so black and white, keep them together and just build around it. It's hard not to question it and go, well, if that's what you've decided to do, where are you going to go with it? But I guess that's something we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. And there you go. That is SmackDown. See, I for the last couple of weeks, for everyone that's listened to every single episode so far, you'll see we're gradually on a decline. We're not going up. We're going down. Like the highlights are just getting so hard to throw together, and hopefully this week is just written off. This week we've got NXT Takeover. Oh, I cannot wait for that. What a card. So hopefully that will redeem WWE in some way, shape, or form from Raw and SmackDown this week. I actually watched NXT this week, believe it or not, which is something I've struggled to do, but I won't be covering it today. NXT was good, so that was a start. NXT Takeover is going to be fantastic. It always is. If you're going to count a rebound from Double or Nothing, NXT is your place to start. Forget Raw and SmackDown even happened. NXT UK, NXT Takeover. Just watch those, and you go, yeah, WWE have got it right. Just get rid of Raw and SmackDown. Who needs them? But that was SmackDown. So we're gonna move on to Double or Nothing briefly, and talk about some of the amazing stuff that happened over there. So I'm going to take a little break. And by break, I mean I'm just going to sit here and put a segue on for 4 or 5 seconds, and then I'll carry on talking. oh my, I'm just breaking the fourth wall. You know what happens now. You know what happens behind the scenes on this podcast. I've ruined it all. Here we go. Now, like I said in the intro, I don't really want to touch too much onto it because there was so much good stuff that happened. I just want to focus on Dustin versus Cody, a double or nothing. Like, what a match that was! And I've just learned before I hit record right now, I just heard that Meltzer, for what it's worth, has given it 5 stars. The only 5-star match of the night. There were some that came really close, but this was the 5-star match of the night. The storytelling was unbelievable, like really, really good. I mean, you take away the stupid throne stuff before the match started. I mean, it is what it is. But the match itself, the storytelling, the blood, my God, the crimson in that thing was. I mean, I've missed blood spots for many years. I really do. I mean, I don't want it around all the time, not like it was in the Attitude Era. It for moments like this match, to have blood, it really did add something to the match, and that's where adding crimson in helps. It helps tell the story. That's what it should be used for. It should be used as a device to tell a story rather than just let's just cut his head open and let's just get a reaction from the crowd. Nah, That's not what blood should be used for in 2019. Use it in storytelling, and that's it. The thing is, I don't know if he actually bled. I don't know if this has become common knowledge or anything like that. I've not seen anything. I don't know if his blade job was botched a little bit, or he actually did bust himself open on the exposed turnbuckle and he just didn't protect himself enough. I don't know. But he was pissing blood, and a lot of it. Like you couldn't differentiate the face paint to his actual face. It just all seemed to become one. And he was like that, the villain out of Captain America, I forget his name, just completely, just a red skull. That's actually probably the villain's name, Red Skull. Maybe, I don't know. Played by Hugo Weaving, so there's that. But no, really good match. And the right person won. But we also had a nice little touching moment at the end when Code. I mean, I didn't realize this. It was a throwback. I was just like, "Oh, this is quite a touching moment." It was really nice. But it actually was a throwback to a promo that Dusty did on Dustin back in WCW, and somebody threw that video together on social media, and I watched it, and I thought, "Man, it's actually incredible." I'm really, really glad I watched it because it just added another thing to that whole moment. I just thought the whole thing was perfect, and something else that was perfect. I mean, Kenny Omega Jericho was a great match. It wasn't as good as the one they had in New Japan, but I really enjoyed it. And I've not really been exposed to Kenny Omega all that much. Match-wise, I've seen highlights and seen what he's capable of doing, but this is probably actually the first match I've sat from bell to bell and watched him wrestle, and I was very, very impressed with what I saw. Jericho was Jericho, he's still got it, and he's 48 years old. It was a great match. I loved it. Wasn't as good as the New Japan one, but it was the thing that happened after that is what's being talked about at the moment, and that is that Jon Moxley is now part of AEW. He has signed a contract. He's on the dot, hit the dotted line. Unbelievable. Everyone thought he was going to come out in the Casino Battle Royal. Didn't. And then you just kind of thought, well, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Jericho starts cutting a promo. I thought, he's going to, start spewing hate at the crowd and, brag about the fact that he's going to become the first AEW champion, all that kind of stuff. And then, the crowd started going, and then there he was. Jon Moxley walking to the ring. And what a moment. And Jim, I didn't think the commentary was great throughout the show, but Jim Ross was at his best at this moment. And I think Jim Ross said actually he didn't even know that Moxley was going to show up. So that added some authenticity to the whole thing. It was really good. The whole thing was really well done. And it seems to have set up a match with Omega and Moxley, which is going to be unbelievably mouth-watering. I can't wait. I don't know when it was going to be. I don't know if it was just Moxley coming in and making a statement, but if it's going to be a match, obviously, at some point. But if we get it sooner rather than later, give it to me. I want that now. And I guess, to extend upon that, there's a recommendation for you before we get into the actual recommends. If you haven't listened to Ambrose / Moxley on Talk is Jericho this week, get listening to it. Is really eye-opening to see the inner workings of WWE and what Vince is like and what the writing process is like. Is an open door, and is very enjoyable, very, very, very enjoyable, very interesting. You've probably seen transcripts of everything that was said in some way, shape, or form on Twitter. People have been posting it, but to hear it come from the man himself is definitely worth checking it out. So yeah, go on to any podcast directory and just download that episode, give it a listen, because you're not going to regret it. But yeah, Double or Nothing, what a show. WWE, take note, and please respond. Please respond, and try and use the momentum that AEW have created straight out of the gate and use it to just give yourself some some substance of product. That's what we want. We want to be able to watch, a multitude of wrestling promotions and shows, and WWE will always be in the center of it. It always will, but I just want it to be good, and I hope that AEW making this statement will make WWE just give them a kick up the arse. But time will tell. But yeah, that was Double or Nothing. Great show. But we're going to head into DOW recommendations for the week. You know the drill by now. Every week I will recommend 4 Twitter accounts for you to follow just because, I love them and I think that you'll love them. Or, they have done something good to me, which, essentially earns them a recommend. So first up is at Ben Bembridge. I'm actually, to be honest, podcasting because of him. I mean, I probably would have done it anyway, but he allowed me to go on his show, the BBAD podcast, which is currently on a hiatus at the moment. But, he allowed me to go on his show with his buddy Ash Dolman, and I really enjoyed my time on there. I did 2 episodes, I think, and just doing those guest spots, I was like, oh, I actually really enjoy this. So I might, go off and do my own one. And obviously now I have, and 7 episodes in, but without, him inviting me onto it, which, he didn't have to do. I do appreciate the fact that he did that, because I might not be recording this right now. And I am enjoying doing it. So thankfully, Ben sent me on my way. So, he's earned that recommendation just for that alone. He will come on this podcast at some point when when I've sorted out the guest spot stuff. But no, go check him out at Ben Bembridge. My second recommendation, I'm sure, is going to be a popular one. At Fansided DDT. I've watched them, from when they started doing their thing. It's really good, to see, a site so positive. I mean, I say it all the time, it's good. It's refreshing to see people being positive on Twitter, and Daily DDT, they are. There's very rarely negative stuff. And if it is negative, it's constructive criticism all the time. And it's not just their stuff on Twitter, they've got great articles as well, which you can check out. It's just very insightful stuff. They've got so many good writers on their team. I don't know who runs their social media account, but whoever it is, does a really good job on there as well. And it's just a nice account to follow. You can find out the goings on in the world of wrestling, not just WWE, just across the board. And Daily DDT are one of my favored, like news outlets or opinion pieces that, exist on social media. So at Fansided DDT, definitely go and check those guys out. I've been meaning to shout out and recommend this guy for weeks, at Josh_Moore. He has pretty much been around on my Twitter feed, since I started my account, since Dits on Wrestling was a thing. Josh, the thing I like about him, he tells it exactly how it is, which I love, and I love his opinions, that he throws out. But what I will say is this: if you're going to do any kind of interaction with Josh, get yourself on YouTube and check out his cover of Africa by Toto. It's fantastic. We share a love of Toto together, and it's a very, very good cover. So I recommend that on top of following his Twitter account as well. He's not all wrestling. Obviously, he talks about other stuff, but when it talks about wrestling, it's well worth taking note of what he's saying. I think he tells it how it is. He's very realistic, and he's definitely worth your follow. And finally, at Phoenix NJPW, otherwise known as Amy O, I have to thank her for, giving me knowledge on stuff that isn't WWE. I've followed her, for, a good while now. And, she's primarily, New Japan, and now looking at AEW. She was there at StarCast over Double or Nothing weekend. and through her, I learn all about, New Japan and, the ins and outs of AEW. I'm still new to AEW. We all are, but, she was there at StarCast, and, I was following what she was, what she was doing there. And I thought, it's really cool, being able to have somebody on the floor that you can, kind of follow and see from their eyes. But no, she's got great content. She's got a really good podcast as well. She's a co-host of the Dragon's Den Wrestling podcast, which you should check out. But no, she's just, and again, I keep harping on about it. She's one of the more positive people on Twitter, and you cannot have enough positive people when it comes to social media and wrestling Twitter, because as the weeks go on, it's becoming more and more vile. There's more and more. And I know I don't swear on this, but there are more and more dickheads, propping up everywhere, and thankfully Amy isn't one of those, nor will she ever be. She creates a nice little balance. But yeah, definitely go check her out at Phoenix NJPW. And yeah, well, there you go. That's the recommendations for this week. We'll have another 4 for you next week. And that is it for Dits on Wrestling this week. And I actually can't believe the time that I'm seeing right now. 37 minutes we're on. Usually we go an hour. So I've actually managed to trim a good 15 minutes off. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe I'm just not waffling as much as I used to. But no, a lot went on in wrestling this week. And we're going to have some more good stuff, tonight, if you're listening to this on the Saturday. NXT TakeOver this weekend. Really looking forward to that. Of course, we've got the usual Raw, SmackDown, and NXT next week. Outside of that, please go on to my Twitter and check out my new DOW Power Rankings. It's completely run by you guys. Just get on there and do your rankings. Window opens Thursday, closes on Sunday, and the rankings drop on the Monday. But all the information that you need is on my Twitter pinned tweet. So check that out. Of course, you can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, and sometimes my YouTube channel. I always say sometimes. It hasn't been on there for weeks, but it might do at some point. But that is it for this week, guys. Great week, Double or Nothing, absolutely fantastic. And NXT TakeOver. I have been longing to watch another NXT TakeOver again. I'm just going to absorb it all. But no, thank you guys for listening. A really good thing that is coming up shortly. I have got a guest spot on a podcast that's coming up, but stay tuned for that. More details will drop. But apart from that, have yourself a good weekend, and I will see you next week.